In today's video, I'll take you to one of the most haunted castles in England. My friend Sunny and I will explore the ruins before settling down for a little painting session on the lawn. Poppy even sneaks off for a little wander of her own.
What a naughty girl.
Afterwards, I'll take you to my studio where I'll show you how I add a few essential finishing touches to my tiny painting. Join me as we visit and paint Barry Pomeroy Castle. You approach the castle down this long, winding, tree-lined road until suddenly the trees open up and there it is. This incredible structure nestled amongst the trees in the middle of nowhere. Barry Pomeroy Castle was built in the 15th century during the time of violent local feuds and the War of the Roses. During that time, Devon was the most lawless area of southern England. The castle is surrounded by steep slopes and originally had a drawbridge and dry moat with modest medieval buildings within the walls. The gatehouse and tower are part of the original structure. When the Pomeroy family fell on hard times financially, the castle was purchased by Edward Seymour in 1547 as one of several properties he acquired during that time. It's not clear whether or not he ever visited the castle. Edward Seymour, the first Duke of Somerset, was the brother of Jane Seymour, the third and favorite wife of King Henry VIII, and the only one who bore him a son, Edward VI, although it sadly resulted in her death from postnatal complications. After the king's death, Edward Seymour became the Lord Protector of his 9-year-old nephew Edward, making him effectively the ruler of England in all but name. Things didn't go well for him, and in 1552 he was accused of treason and beheaded. Afterwards, his eldest son, also named Edward, Lord Seymour, in fact, everyone from this point forward was named Edward, inherited Barry Pomeroy Castle and built a modest early Elizabethan mansion within its walls, no doubt comforted by its security after the violent death of his father. He eventually became the High Sheriff of Devon. His son renovated the castle even further, but never finished it due to financial troubles. Eventually, one of the Edward successors stripped the castle of all of the useful things like floorboards, roof tiles, and window panes to help build his house in Wiltshire, which was closer to London where he worked in Parliament. The castle subsequently fell into ruin. In the late 18th century, it became a magnet for artists and visitors as local tourism in the nearby seaside towns became popular. Gothic novels fueled tales of murder and ghosts. Soon, stories from the earliest days of the castle began to swirl of a white lady, thought to be Margaret Pomeroy, locked in the tower by her jealous sister until she starved to death. Another tale of a blue lady, a Norman lady who lost a child sired by her father, is said to lure people inside until they wander around and eventually fall to their deaths. And yet another tale tells of two brothers leaping from the roof in full armor on their steeds during a siege. All of these helped to give the castle the title of one of the most haunted in England. And in the past few centuries, there have been numerous reports of strange sounds, lights, and cold spots. None of these tales have supporting evidence, but I visited the castle in winter to paint when nobody else was here and before I knew of any of the ghost tales. As I was drawing, the atmosphere shifted from calm and serene to cold and forbidding within minutes. I felt like I was being watched and quickly returned home to finish my painting in the serenity of my studio. But it took a few days to shake the feeling. And that's how the castle has always felt to me. It can go from being a peaceful, welcoming haven to a dark and ominous sight. So if you believe in spirits, you might like to visit and judge for yourself. This is my first time being here in the summer. I've only been here in the winter before, where it's really scary and a lot less crowded. And I can imagine for the first time how amazing it would have been to have a wonderful sunny summer enclave here. It doesn't feel haunted today. The sentries would have walked on this wall behind me to help guard the castle. I've left Poppy in the car because she was really misbehaving. And even though they do allow dogs in the castle, I just thought it would be a little bit easier to let her have a break and know that I mean business when I say to behave. But you can see the castle behind me. It's so beautiful, and it's really close to the car park, which is unusual for a property like this. It's really one of my favorite castles to visit, if not my favorite. I think maybe it is my favorite. Sunny and I have just had a really wonderful lunch at the on-site cafe, and now we're going to settle on the lawn and paint the castle. Sunny has something very cool. Show me that.
It's not. It's just a water cup.
But it has a funnel so it doesn't spill.
Yeah, I got it in Prague, along with this.
With your paint.
Yeah.
Does the funnel part come out?
I think so. Yeah, it does.
That's so great. I'm going for a view something like this. I like the different greens, and I'm getting enough of the castle in without being too dominant. I'm dying of heat.
I know it's so hot today. Where are you guys?
In the full
I
sun.
forgot. That's not very specific.
Okay, so Sunny, what part are you painting?
I'm painting that building.
Okay. Are you doing a whole long spread?
No, just this page.
Just this one page.
Yeah.
Can we see your book? Can you give us a little sketchbook tour?
This is in Prague. That's also in Prague. And this is like a little town 3 hours away from Prague.
It's cute. I just love your urban sketches. Do you call them urban sketches or paintings? What would you classify them as?
Paintings?
Yeah, I love your paintings.
I didn't know urban sketching was a phrase, a term.
Yeah. Urban sketching is a more casual form of plein air painting where you're not as worried about it being perfect or realistic colors. You're just sketching.
Well, I have that mentality.
Yeah, I think we've lost a dog again. So Poppy was lounging over to the right of this bush, and then she was under the bush, and now that's not her, don't worry. But we've lost her again, so I'm gonna have to find her. I hope she didn't go in the castle without us.
Poppy, were you in the castle? Come on. Come on. I'm your castle dog.
What a naughty girl.
What did you do? You have to stay by here.
Dogs can be in the castle, but on the lead. But they don't say anything about they don't say anything about an owner holding on to the other side. Poppy.
She is on the lead.
That was naughty, honey.
hard when it's just gray.
Yeah. I love the texture you have on it, though.
Thank you.
I'm back home and I want to add some touch-ups to the painting because I'm really not happy with the contrast of value. If you squint at it, you'll see that it's all kind of samey. In particular, this section was definitely lighter than this section, and I don't think the contrast is as evident. And this was much lighter, this strip of sunlight, as were some of the greens here and here. So I'm going to use a little bit of gouache to do that. And I'll just use this dried gouache set, but I also might use a little bit of this micro red dot, which is a 5/0. I'm also going to have handy a 10/0 micro dot, and I also have a number 4 filbert. The main thing is this is very pale. I want to brighten it up just a little. I can actually do that with watercolor. So I'll go in with a bit more yellow, tiny bit of the phthalo, and just add a second coat. I still want it to look like watercolor, but I want to warm that up a little bit more. And I might add a little bit to the tops of the trees. And there. Let me add a little bit of French ultramarine to that. Add a bit of green to these trees because the value's pretty good, but I lost some of the green in the process. I think already putting a little bit of color into that helps. It got so dark that it just was impossible to remember what I was dealing with. That already is making this castle pop a little bit more. You can probably see that. I do want to lighten some of the castle, and for that I'll go in with the gouache. So I'm going to mix a gray using my burnt sienna and my blue, and then lighten it a bit with the white. I'm adding more white than I think I need. It's kind of chalky looking, so I'm going to add just a dash of the white just to put a little bit of sunlight on there. I think that might do it. I think that's going to be too dark still, but I can test it out over here in some of these areas. That's not too bad. I do want it a bit lighter even still. This might work. Let's see. I think that's a bit better. Now that will dry darker, so I'm not too concerned. This window I could see a bit of there, and there was this little tiny strip here. And then I'm into that. I'm going to put a little bit of blue to make it a bit more green. Maybe a bit of, I want a warmer green, so. Let's warm it up a bit more. Every time you add white, it cools it down. So if you want to cool it down, add a bit of white. If you want to warm it up again, add a bit of yellow. I'm just going to put a few dots in here and there. And then also the sunlight was kissing these trees at the tops a little bit. So just to add a little bit of texture, I'm dotting it, but I'm leaving lots of the green underneath. And maybe 1 or 2 little dots here where the sky was peeking through. There was a bit of reflected light shining through right there. I think it's starting to have a little bit more dimension already. It's always good if you're going to touch up a painting to do it while the scene is still fresh. So there was a bit of lightness there as well. I need to lighten that. So this color that's actually on, that's pretty good. I saw that there and there. Now this dried really dark, so I'm going to go in with this lighter color again. And I lied about the micro dot because I seem to be doing everything with this, but I did go over too much there, so I'll go in a bit. I'm going to add a little bit of ink over this, so I'm not really too bothered. But I could also see that. I think that's looking pretty good. And I'm taking a clean brush, and it's damp, not wet, and I want to scrub out just a little bit of that. Blend it out where that edge of the wall is. And if I'm squinting at this now, I can see more of this pattern of sunlight. But this, again, this whole side of the building was in shadow, and that's a scary thing to do. But I want a cooler shadow, and I'm going to do a little transparent glaze over that area. I think that's getting somewhere. So let me dry it and go in with a little bit of ink to add a little bit of texture. And I think I'm going to call it good on that. I think that is looking a bit more like what I saw. Thank you so much for coming along today. If you'd like to see more of my painting adventures or drawing and painting tips, I have playlists here. Or consider checking out my Patreon, where I have monthly videos in drawing and painting and color mixing, as well as a podcast, sketchbook club, and other behind-the-scenes content. I hope you all have a beautiful day with many happy painting adventures of your own.